Good afternoon, everybody. Are you getting my voice? Please reply. Did you getting my voice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the last lecture, we have to be seen the chapter that is a hybrid parameter of the BJT, right? So before discussing the hybrid parameter, why we have to be need of the hybrid parameter for the analysis of the transistor, that we have to be seen first, and then we have to be start the point, right? See, any of the analysis purposes, we have requirement of the mathematical things, right? So mathematical thing indicate that it should be any of the mathematical things such as Laplace transform, J transform, etc. Right? So this should be used for the purpose of BJT, but we doesn't use it for the purpose of your BJT. Why it is? The reason behind it is that when we have to be done the analysis by using parameters such as Laplace transform or J transform, it should not possible. Why it is? Because see, in case of any of the same thing indicate that it should be impedance, it should be resistance, or it should be I2 upon V2. It is nothing but admittance. Any the thing, it should be same. In that case, we have to be use the same type of the parameter, right? So in this case, all of the parameter which should be coming with respect to the transistor, that is BJT, that should be different. That means what? See, some parameter are the resistance, some parameter of the admittance, some parameter of the voltage ratio, some parameter of the current ratio. Means whatever the thing coming with respect to your transistor, that are the different. That's why we doesn't analyze the thing with respect to your Laplace or the J transform, that is mathematical form, right? So analysis of that particular transistor parameter, we have requirement of the complex things such as hybrid parameter, right? That's why we have to be analyze the performance of your BJT or analysis of BJT configuration with respect to your configuration, that is a H parameter, right? This should be the thing. And another thing, why we need of the hybrid parameter model for the purpose of your transistor, right? See, I have already told the reason about it, but the proper reason is that it makes your whatever the circuit analysis that is simplified, right? This makes your analysis of circuit is simple. That is the basic reason behind it is because see, if we have analysis the transistor, if the one parameter coming with respect to transistor, that is a resistance or the impedance, right? And other parameter, it is a voltage ratio. So analysis in between them is not possible, right? So that we doesn't use the any of the things, mathematical things such as J transform or the Laplace transform, right? So when we have to be use the hybrid parameter, in its analysis is simple. Okay. Another thing, this should not be, means whatever your hybrid analysis, that is not used for the digital circuit, right? It should be only used for the purpose of an analog application. Okay. Then which are that analog application, why it needed? See, the measuring the performance parameters such as your input impedance, output impedance, voltage gain or current gain. So when we have to be use the hybrid parameter, it becomes easy, right? That's why we have to use the hybrid model of the transistor. And another thing, amplifier or the filter performance, we have to be seen by using this hybrid model of the BJT. Okay, this part and the next part we have seen, but this is the revised. See, determination and meaning of H parameter means how we have to be calculate the H parameter. So that's why we have decorate the same thing with respect to your input output model, right? So see, we know that when we have to be considered as a transistor as an two-port network, right? So what do you mean by two-port network? That we have to be seen the first, right? So two-port network, what means, what do you mean by it? See, two-port network indicate that it have two input, it have two output, right? So two input, two output, that is nothing but a two-port network. But see, in case of your transistor, only three terminal, which are that? Tell me in transistor have the only either your NPN or PNP configuration, it have only three terminal, which are that? Please tell me. Terminal of transistor. Please reply.
Emitter base.
Right, emitter base collector, only 3 terminal with respect to your transistor, right? So in case of your 2-port network, it have 2 input, 2 output, means it should have requirement of the 4 terminal, right? So we have to be analyzed by your transistor by using your 2-port network, right? It have requirement of the 2 input, 2 output, right? That is 4 terminal, right? But transistor have the 3 terminal. How it is possible to analyze the transistor as a 2-port network? I have already told which is the thing which should be followed with respect to it. Tell me again. See, any of the device and its analysis with respect to 2-port network, we have requirement of the 2 input. See, 2 input and 2 output. But in case of your transistor, only 3 collector, base, emitter, that is 3 terminal, right? So if the 3 terminal, there is not possibility of analysis of transistor with respect to 2-port network. So which thing should be followed for it? You know about it? I have already told you. Tell me again. सांगितलं होतं, सांगा, रिपीट करा. कोण सांगेल? सोनाली चव्हाण, नम्रता गोडके. See, there is not any problem if transistor have 3 terminals. See, 3 indicate that one of the terminals, see, base, emitter, collector, common indicate that, means if we have to use the common base or common collector or common emitter. These are the 3 configuration with respect to your transistor, right? So common base, common emitter, common collector. What it indicates that one of the terminal of your transistor that should be used as a common between your input and output, right? So it should be 3, not only 3, it becomes 4. Why it is 4? Because one terminal is common, right, in between your input and output, so that whatever the terminal coming with respect to your transistor, that is a 4. That's why analysis of transistor with respect to 2-port network is possible, right? See, here P1 as the input applied to the transistor 2-port network, right? 2-port network indicate that 2 input and 2 output, right? So 2 input, 2 output. So when we are applying the input voltage as a P1, in that case, whatever the current flowing through the device, that is a I1 current, right? So due to the P1 voltage and I1 current flowing through the transistor as a 2-port network, it becomes output current, that is I2, and the output voltage becomes a P2, right? So these are the things with respect to the 2-port network. Only thing with respect to 2-port network is that when we have to be seen the 2-port network, it becomes have the 2 input and 2 output things, right? So here P1 is nothing but an input voltage, I1 is nothing but an input current, I2 is nothing but output current, and P2 is nothing but an output voltage, right? These 4 things with respect to your transistor, right? So see, when we have seen the 2-port network, in that case, some of the parameters are dependent and some of the parameters are the independent. What do you mean by dependent and what do you mean by independent? That we have seen first, and then we have to see the analysis of the transistor network. See, dependent means what? See, the value of that parameter should be dependent on other factor. That is called as dependent parameter, right? Independent, what it indicate? What it indicate that it does not depend on any of the other parameter. That is called as independent, right? So in this case, see, applied input voltage V1 and the current I2, that are dependent parameter, right? Dependent parameter means what? The value of V1 and I2. See, the value of V1 and I2 that should be depend on the other parameter. Other parameter indicate that V2 and I1. I'm again tell you, the thing we have discussed with respect to the dependent and independent parameter, right? So see, what do you mean by dependent parameter? The parameter which value is depend on any other parameter, that are called as dependent parameter. Independent parameter means what? The parameter which doesn't depend on the other parameter, that are called as independent parameter. So in above figure, P1 and I2, see, P1 and I2, that are called as dependent parameter. Dependent means what? The value of P1 and I2. See, value of V1 and I2 that should be depend on I1 and V2. I1 and V2. Okay, this should be the thing with respect to the your two-port network, right? So see, लक्षात आलंय का डिपेंडंट इंडिपेंडंट काय असतं? प्लीज रिप्लाय द्या. नसेल आलं तर परत एकदा सांगेन मी. डिपेंडंट पॅरामीटर आणि इंडिपेंडंट पॅरामीटर काय असतं लक्षात आलंय का? रिप्लाय द्या.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So we have to be known that V1, which is input voltage, I1 is the input current, I2 is output current, and V2 is output voltage, right? See, in case of your two-port network, there are four things as we have to be discussed: V1, I1, I2, V2. These are called as four things which should be used for the purpose of two-port network, right? So we know that there are two things are the dependent parameter and two things are the independent parameter. As we know that V1 and I2, see V1 and I2 that are the dependent thing and V2 and I1 that are independent thing, right? So dependent indicate that value of V1 and I2 should be depend on the value of other parameter. Other parameter indicate that V2 and I1, right? And the value of V2 and I1 does not depend on any other parameter. Any other indicate that V1 and I2, right? So it is called as independent parameter, right? This independent parameter indicate that its value does not depend on the dependent parameter. Okay, so here V1 and I2, these are the two things, right? V1 and I2 that are the two things that should be directly depend on the value of the I1 and V2, right? So see what it indicate that if V1 and I2 see separately, we have taking V1 and I2 as separately, then we know that V1, see V1 which is equal to, we doesn't consider it as a F, right? So V1 depend on I1 and V2, right? V1 depend on I1 and V2. Same way, I2 also depend on the I1 and V2. Why it is? See, why it equation coming? See, I already told you related to the things that is V1 and I2 are dependent variable and V2 and I1 are independent. So what it indicate that separate out V1 and I2 separate out. So value of V1 also depend on the V2 and I1, right? V1 value depend on the V2 and I1, and also I2 value also depend on value of V2 and I1, right? So it indicate that V1 as a function of V2 and I1, right? V1 as a function of V2 and I1, and at the same way I2 also the function of V2 and I1, right? म्हणजेच याचा अर्थ काय सांगतो, V1 याच्यासाठी V1 याच्यासाठी आपल्याला I1 आणि V2 च्या फंक्शनवर डिपेंड राहावं लागतं. लक्षात घ्या. आणि I2 साठी सुद्धा आपल्याला I1 आणि V2 च्या व्हॅल्यूवर डिपेंड राहावं लागतं. तेच इथं नोटिफाय केलेलं आहे. हे लक्षात येत आहे का? प्लीज टेल मी, डिड यू अंडरस्टँड द सेम थिंग दॅट इज V1 as a function of I1 and V2, I2 as a function of I1 and V2. हे लक्षात येत आहे का?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So this is indicate that V1 as a function of I1 and V2, I2 as a function of I1 and V2. So any of the thing, see any of the thing if coming with respect to the means V1 as a function of I1 and V2 or I2 as a function of I1 and V2, if the same thing is coming means it is the one of the form of the equation of the mathematics, right? So any of the mathematical equation which should be coming in this form, so it should be considered as a, see this V1 and I2, this should be considered as one of the dependent variable, right? So we have given the name for the dependent variable as a Z, right? So consider the name for this is V1 and I2, it should be considered as a Z or it should be dependent variable, right? That should be. So here what we have to do, instead of V1 we have to be written as a Z as a function of I1 and V2 or Z as a function of I1 and V2, right? Right. So we know that I1 and V2, see Z as a function of I1 and V2, what it indicate that Z as a function, I is the variable for the X and V2 is the variable for Y, right? So it is nothing but a Z is equal to function of X comma Y, right? लक्षात येतं काय? परत सांगतो, लक्षात घ्या. V1 which is equal to function of I1 comma V2 or I2 is equal to function of I1 comma V2, what it indicate that it is nothing but a phi1 and I2, this should be considered as a Z, right? So if any equation coming with respect to in this form, in that case we have to be written as a V1 and I2 require the function as a Z, right? So Z is equal to function of I1 comma V2, right? This is the thing. Z is equal to function of I1 comma V2. So I1 is nothing but a variable of X. V2 is nothing but a variable of Y. So it is nothing but a Z is equal to function of X comma Y, right? This is the thing. So it should be expressed as a Z is equal to F of X comma Y. हे लक्षात आलंय का सगळ्यांचे क्वेश्चन कसं आलं ते? प्लीज रिप्लाय द्या. आणखी एकदा सांगू एकदा. See, we know that this V1 and I2, see V1 and I2 that are the dependent variable. For the dependent variable, we have to be used the word as a Z, right? We have considered as we have to be used word as a Z, right? So Z is the function of I1 comma V2, or Z is the function of I1 comma V2, right? So I1 is the function of X, V2 as the function of Y. So that's why we have to be written Z as a function of X comma Y. आता लक्षात आलंय सगळ्यांच्या? प्लीज रिप्लाय द्या. कोकटे लक्षात आलंय का?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Function of X comma Y, right? So see, any of the equation coming with respect to Z is equal to F comma XY. So it is nothing but a, this equation is nothing but a linear combination. So this equation is nothing but a linear combination. See, any of the linear equation, it should be expressed as in a mathematical form such as Z is equal to Z as it is F of bracket X comma Y. It is nothing but a AX plus BY. This is the mathematical term, right? So any of the equation, see any of the equation, if it is expressed as a Z is equal to function of X comma Y, then it should be linear combination of the mathematical form. So it should be noted as an Z is equal to, for A have one of the constant, that is AX plus BY, means any of the equation which should be coming in the form of Z is equal to F into bracket of X comma Y, that should be expressed as Z is equal to AX plus BY, right? This will be the mathematical expression if it should be written in this way, right? So see, we know that your equation is Z is equal to AX plus BY, but basically see, basically Z is nothing but either phi1 or I2, right? So Z is nothing but basically either phi1 and V2, phi1 or I2. So it is nothing but C, phi1, right? So this term Z is equal to AX plus BY. So Z is nothing but considered as a phi1, right? So Z is nothing but as considered as a phi1. So A is nothing but a constant term, right? Constant term into X variable, plus B is nothing but a constant term into Y variable. See here. So above equation shows that it should be expressed as like as X plus BY. So whatever the equation coming across here, it should be expressed as in the form of X plus BY, right? So A is nothing but a constant, right? See. So phi1 is equal to, phi1 indicate that this is a phi1 equal to this equation should be in the form of AX plus BY, right? So phi1 equal to A as it is A indicate that it is a constant, right? So we have to be put out the constant, right? phi1 equal to constant, right? Constant into, they have to tell X variable, right? X variable indicate that this is the X variable. So I1, right? So constant into I1 plus now see other thing, B is nothing but a constant, right? B is nothing but a constant into Y variable is nothing but a phi2, right? So constant into phi2, right? This is the equation. I'm again told you this equation, right? See, we know that we have to be expressed as a Z is equal to AX plus BY, because this equation form in the form of mathematics, then it should be converted as an z is equal to ax plus by, right? So for that purposes, z is equal to ax plus by, it is nothing but a is a constant, b is nothing but a constant. X indicate that x variable, y indicate that y variable. Okay, so phi1, as it is phi1, which is equal to this a, it is nothing but a constant into x variable. It is nothing but a constant. A is nothing but a constant into x variable. So x variable is nothing but a I1. So I1 plus same plus coming across here plus b. B is nothing but a constant, right? B is nothing but a constant, and the y variable is nothing but a phi2. So phi2, right? So your equation is phi1 equal to constant into I1 plus constant into phi2. This should be related to the phi1. Okay, now for the purpose of pi2, because z is nothing but a phi1 and phi2. See, that's why for the z we have to use the I2 also. So I2 equal to ax plus by. A is nothing but a constant, right? Constant into x variable. So it is nothing but a constant into x variable. X variable indicate that I1. Okay, plus c. Here b indicate that constant into y variable v2, right? So plus constant into y variable, that is a v2, right? This will be the thing. हे लक्षात आलंय का इक्वेशन कसे आले लक्षात घ्या. या स्लाइडला जर मी जास्त वेळ घालतो तर याचा अर्थ पुढच्यासाठी कमीत कमी वेळ लागणार आहे. त्यासाठी मी जास्तीत जास्त सांगायला लागलो. हे लक्षात येतंय का इक्वेशन कसे आलेत ते?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have to be calculate the z parameter thing with respect to phi1 and I2, right? So see, we have to be calculate here phi1 equal to constant into I1, right? Plus constant into phi2. This is equation number considered as a third. For the I2, constant into I1 plus constant into phi2. This is equation number 4, right? So if we have to be used for the constant, if it should be considered as a h, right? या प्रत्येक क्वेश्चनसाठी आपण एच यूज केलं. समजा एच 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 एच, राइट? इफ वी हैव टू बी यूज एच टर्म फॉर्म इट, so h indicate that hybrid, then all of the h are mixed each other, right? So that's why we have to be, for the differentiation purpose, we have to be done some of the things which causes we have to be differentiated this 4h, right? See, initially written constant as a h, 4h we have to be written. Now see, we have seen the constant which parameter in accordance with we have to be written the particular thing, right? So see here h, right? So we have seen that h parameter with respect to voltage one and current one, right? First parameter, see, h is coming across here, and we have seen this parameter with respect to voltage one and the current one. That's why h11. See, that's why it is h1, right? लक्षात घ्या h11 का मी याला म्हणतो लक्षात घ्या. See, we have to be, for all of the constant we have to be use the h term, right? If all the h indicate that this is not separation, right? For that purpose we have to be written according to the whatever the thing means with respect to input and the connected thing. That's why here h is coming, and in this is for input voltage one and the input current one. That's why it should be written as a h11, right? So this is the thing, means v1 equal to h11 I1 plus now constant into v2, right? Constant, now h is already, but this h is for voltage v1 and voltage v2. That's why here h12, right? So here h11, here h12, right? Now see, this will be coming. So equation is nothing but a h11 I1 plus h12 v2. Okay, for the purpose of I2, see, for the purpose of I2, same way, constant into I1, right? But which are the constant? H only. See, h. For that h, we have seen that parameter with respect current 2 and with respect to multiplying factor I current 1. So that's why it is a h21, right? h21. Okay, so I2 is equal to h21 I1, right? Plus constant into v2, right? So constant h is already, so for that h is with respect to current 2 and the voltage 2. That's why here H22, right? So all of the equation is nothing but I2 is equal to H21 into I1 plus here H22 into V2. Okay, so above constant term is nothing but a hybrid parameter, right? This constant term is nothing but a H parameter, right? So all of the H parameter we have to be discussed here as a V1 which is equal to V1 which is equal to H11 into I1 plus H12 into V2, right? So equation 4, I2 equal to constant H21 into I1 plus H2 into V2 into V2, right? H22 into V2. Okay, so your equation is nothing but here. हे इक्वेशन कशी काढलेत आपण लक्षात घ्या. हे लक्षात आलंय का तुमच्या? त्यासाठी मी डिटेल घ्यायला लागलो याचं. हे लक्षात आलंय का? याच्यात म्हणजे लक्षात म्हणजे असं पाठ करणं वगैरे काय लक्षात ठेवण्यासारखं सिम्पली पाठ आहे. लक्षात घ्या. परत एकदा हे सांगायची गरज आहे का मला सांगा. असेल गरज तर मी रिपीट करतो, कारण हे जर समजलं ना पुढच्यासाठी खूप कमी वेळ जाणार आहे मला पुढच्या चॅप्टर थिंग साठी. पण हे जर नाही कळलं तर पुढे जाता येत नाही. लक्षात आलंय का? मी दुसऱ्यांना विचारतो. मोनिका साळुंके, आला असेल तर सांगायचं, येस म्हणायचं, नसेल तर नाही म्हणायचं. लक्षात आलंय का? प्लीज रिप्लाय द्या, येस ऑर नो. कार्तिका नागडे, लक्षात आलंय की नाही?